listening to the Crosscheck NHL Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark.
Hello and welcome to the Crosscheck NHL Show. Thanks for making the Crosscheck NHL Show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. We're free and available on all platforms, now including YouTube. My name is Mary Clark, staff writer for The Win, and you can follow me on Twitter at Mary C. Clark. I'm here with Andrew Berkshire, NHL analyst for the Montreal Gazette and host of Game Over Montreal on the SDPN. You can follow on Twitter at Andrew Berkshire. On this Tuesday edition of the Crosscheck, I'm back from vacation, and the Avalanche have won the Stanley Cup. And what a series it was, too, as we'll talk about the Avs finally cresting the summit and the Lightning's place in NHL history. Plus, Barry Trotz won't be coaching next season, so what does that mean for the head coaching market? So, Andrew, before we start off today's show, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I feel a lot better than this time last week where I wasn't able to do the show. So glad to have you back, Mary. It was great to have Laura on last week as well, but I'm very ready for the end of this season. I loved these playoffs. They were fantastic. It's the best Stanley Cup final that I can remember, but I'm ready for vacation mode. Obviously, we've got the draft coming up, but other than that, I'm ready to start doing some work around the house.
No, I get it. I mean, I just came back from vacation mode. As you know, I wasn't here on the show last week because I was on vacation. I still worked the Stanley Cup final for my full-time job, but yeah, it was good to have a nice, just it's good to relax. It's good to, reset yourself and stuff like that. And now I'm just kind of energized and whatnot. But I think we have before we dive in to the Stanley Cup final, because the playoffs were great. The Stanley Cup final was excellent. I'm so glad it went at least 6 games because we deserved that. It could have been 7, but whatever. We have an announcement to make. This Friday, July 1st, is going to be our last show with the Crosscheck NHL Show. I think we both decided, Andrew, that it was a good time to end it. And, we've got a lot of stuff on our plates individually. But I think I can, I don't want to speak for you, but I can at least speak for myself here and say that, this past year plus since we've done the show has been such a rewarding time. I've got to, I learned how to podcast basically because of the show. And, I feel, like we've created such a bond with, ourselves, with the, Locked On network as a whole. I mean, like we've joked about how Laura and Rachel are basically the secondary co-hosts of the show for good reason. And we've, had a lot of great memories, but it's a really good time to end it. So Friday will be the last show. This will be the last time I'm hosting. Andrew will host the final show. But do you have anything you want to say before we get into the hockey about us, ending it here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been a pleasure to do this with you for this year and few months, Mary, and thanks to Locked On for putting this show together, and thanks to you for accepting my invitation to come co-host with me. It's been fun, but as you mentioned, we have lots of balls in the air. I have rapid expansion at SDPN forthcoming this summer, and I just had to start cutting things that I could no longer find time to do, and unfortunately this show is one of them.
It's bittersweet basically. And like you, I too have stuff in my life that I have to make time for and whatnot, so this will definitely help alleviate my schedule and bring better work-life balance and stuff as it is. But like I said, all good things from this show, and thank you to the listeners and watchers for sticking around for as long as you guys have. I know a lot of you have been there since day one. So just thank you. Obviously we'll still have this show and an entire other show at the end of the week before we say goodbye, but we figured we would give you guys just a couple days heads up. But from there, though, we are going to transition right into the end of the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs and the Stanley Cup final. The Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup, their first since 2001, I believe their third overall as a franchise, besting the Tampa Bay Lightning, the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. They're no more. The Avalanche won in Game 6 by a score of 2-1. And what a game it was. Obviously, the Lightning took that, lead, but then a frantic second period the Avalanche were able to score their 2 goals with your boy Lehkonen, Andrew. I knew you were. You knew. Scored the game winner, and then the Avalanche locked it down in the third period and just did not allow the Lightning to do anything of substance. But what a game it was. Obviously, we're going to spend a whole bunch of time talking about the game, the series overall, what this means for the Avalanche, how happy we are for a whole bunch of Avalanche players. But I guess I'll start off with this, Andrew. Are you satisfied with the way it ended? Because for a little bit here, it was looking a little bit tenuous as to if we would get a longer series. But were you satisfied with the way this ended?
I am and was and will continue to be. Not only because my boy Arturi Lehkonen gets his name on the Stanley Cup, but also because my buddy Arik Parnas gets his name on the Stanley Cup, but also because it was just such a great series. And with the talent that these two teams have, there was a possibility that the final game was going to be like game 2, or I think it was game 4 in Tampa, where it could have been a blowout, right? We could have known from the first period who was going to win the game that decided the Stanley Cup, and we didn't. We didn't know until the last couple of seconds when the officials noticed that Victor Hedman wasn't skating hard enough and decided not to call an icing. It was down to the wire. And that's the best way to decide a Stanley Cup, is at the very last moments. You don't know what's going to happen. And I absolutely loved it. I was on the edge of my seat the entire game. It was phenomenal series. Hats off to both teams. And then we got moments like Nazem Kadri, the first Muslim to win a Stanley Cup, get his name on the Stanley Cup. Obviously fantastic. And then he has that amazing quote about, to people who said that he was a liability in the playoffs, they can kiss his ass. And people took it so seriously, as if he was pretending that he didn't get suspended 3 playoffs in a row. And he laughed so hard after he said it. It was clearly like, yes, it was thumbing at the haters, but also it was in jest.
Yeah.
And I just love that he can laugh about it now. And he's an unrestricted free agent. Nazem Kadri, you won the Stanley Cup. Get paid, my friend.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And I know there's a lot of talk that, people would love him on the Flyers. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot that can happen this offseason. It's certainly going to be a busy one, but hats off to both teams. Like you said, this was a truly incredible Stanley Cup final. I think the only way it could have been better is if it went to 7 games and we had more overtimes.
Yeah.
Like that's the only thing I can say about it that I wish there was more of. And that's a good thing. I wish there was more of something instead of, I wish that things had turned out differently. I was fine, like I said, with either team winning the Stanley Cup here. Felt like both were deserved in their own rights. To be where they were, and to, play on this stage in front of, these fans. And it delivered in every single way possible. I think, we had the moments, we had the overtime drama, we had, the blowouts, we had the close games. Like game 6 was a really good, like I know that the series started out with, those, big blowouts, lots of goals and stuff, but this is how you want the series to end, is you want it to be close. You want like you said, you want to be at the edge of your seat, basically. And even though I felt in the third period the Avalanche had this lockdown, I know that there was a couple of shots that got on Darcy Kemper that were scary to watch, because they just needed one shot to tie it. But
there was that one Kucherov chance where Kemper came across, and it was a great save from him. But you're right that the Avs locked it down, and not just defensively, but they pushed for the first 12, 14 minutes of that period and just kept the Lightning in their own zone. It was incredible. The effort from guys like Landeskog, Lehkonen, Kadri on the forecheck, and then everyone on the team at their own defensive blue line just clogging up the neutral zone, giving the Lightning nothing to work with. In that game, the Avalanche and the Lightning both displayed why they are so great. And what more can you ask for?
Yeah, exactly.
It was just fantastic.
Exactly. And for the Avalanche, this means so much because for years, I believe, before this season, they had 3 straight seasons of being bounced in the second round, not able to get over the hump of the second round. And in this year's playoffs, they sweep the Predators in the first round. They win in the second round against the Blues after, all the stuff that went on with the water bottle toss and, everything there, like the drama, the theatrics, all of that stuff. They were able to win out a gritty series against the Blues. Then they swept the Oilers in the Western Conference Final. And then were able to go toe-to-toe and then some against the Tampa Bay Lightning, the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, and win out. And what was their record? I don't know if you have it on hand, but they it was a ridiculous record. It was like 16-4,
16-4.
16-4. That's a ridiculous record in the playoffs. That is absolutely bonkers.
I believe it's the best since the LA Kings won in 2012.
Yeah, that checks out. What a team this is. And obviously, what you mentioned, Kadri, they've got questions to answer in terms of what this team will be like next year. But even without Kadri, they were able to get, really far into the playoffs before, the Stanley Cup final before he came back. They were winning the series when he came back. And, I think that speaks to a testament of what they have built there in Colorado. These are the two teams, these are the teams that everyone in the NHL should be aspiring to become, because they are, fast, relentless, they're incredible offensively, have some just insane talent. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Cale Makar yet, who had one hell of a week, winning the Norris, winning the Stanley Cup, and then winning the Conn Smythe on top of it all. We really saw a passing of the torch here from Victor Hedman, previous Stanley Cup winner, previous Norris Trophy winner, previous Conn Smythe winner, to Cale Makar in this game. And it just, what a week for him. And, he's certainly going to be a player that is up there in, talk for best in the NHL. And he's a defenseman, and you don't often get that. It has to be a truly special player to, be in that conversation, and Cale Makar is, and he's 23. The sky's the limit for this kid, and this is just a great hockey team. And you didn't even mention they had the Stanley Cup for 15 minutes and they dent it on the ice. Yeah,
was it even 15 minutes?
It was
the fastest dent ever.
Yeah, it was, when they were lining up for their picture, Nicolas Aube-Kubel had the Stanley Cup. Former Flyer Nicolas Aube-Kubel had the Stanley Cup and was bringing it over and tripped, and you can see the dent when he pulls it back up, and everybody's reactions are really funny. Definitely look it up if you missed it for some reason. It was when they were all gathering for their team picture. This was just such a well-deserved win for the Avalanche, and I'm really happy for them because they had however many years ago, it was less than I guess a decade now, that they were the lowest of the low in the NHL. They had one of the worst seasons in the modern NHL, and you go from that to this in such a short turnaround time. Speaks to everything that they've done to build up this team with talent, with homegrown talent, and finding the depth pieces. I mean, we talked about the Taves trade, and just what a find that was to get him on the team. And I can't say more. I can't speak more highly of the Avalanche and what they've done here, because it really takes a truly special team to be able to knock off the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. And we're going to talk about them in the next segment, because I'm sure, there's a lot to talk about with them too. But it takes a truly special team to be able to do what the Avalanche did, and they did. And, just absolute congratulations to everybody on that team. Just what a story, what a team, what incredible hockey we were witness to. Just really awesome stuff. Is there anything else, Andrew, you want to say on the Avalanche here before we move on? Because this was such a great series and a great final, and I had a lot of fun covering it. Just this is what you want hockey to be. If you're a hockey fan, this type of just watch the Stanley Cup final, and you realize why you love hockey so much, despite all of the shenanigans the NHL puts us through. Shenanigans and just disappointment overall. This Stanley Cup was what it
should be.
What it should be, what hockey should be.
Yeah. So to put in context how good the Colorado Avalanche were in this postseason, I went back all the way to 1980, and maybe I'm alone here, but I'm confused as to why a bunch of teams in the 80s only had 15 wins to the Stanley Cup. Maybe the first round used to be best of 5.
Maybe
I'm not sure, but interesting, noteworthy anyway. But the teams that have fared as well as the Avalanche in that time, which is what now 33 years, more than that, 43 years. There are a handful of teams that have gone 16-4. The New Jersey Devils is 94-95. The Montreal Canadiens is 92-93. The Detroit Red Wings is 96-97. The LA Kings of 2011, 2012. And that's it.
Yeah.
Only one team, while you needed 16 wins to win a Stanley Cup, has ever had fewer than 4 losses. And it was the 1987-88 Edmonton Oilers, who went 16-2.
Ooh, boy. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really get any more dominant than that, but yeah, obviously that was 2 different eras of hockey, and just I think that really puts what the Avalanche did here into perspective. And sure, you can say that the Predators were a bit of a cakewalk, but they got to the Stanley Cup playoffs, so they deserve to be there.
You can asterisk any Stanley Cup victory if you look hard enough.
This is true. You can. And, I know people will probably say that about Tampa's, Stanley Cups, that, they didn't do it in a full 82 game season. Yeah, no, I know. Right? I'm just saying that you can technically make that argument, but I don't agree with it at all. Like it was probably harder to, do what the Lightning did, just with the way that the seasons were constructed. But yeah, congratulations again to the Avalanche. This is just really awesome. I definitely recommend just like watching all of the videos of the players hugging each other. I don't remember who it was, which 2 players were on the ice hugging each other, but that was really cool. I think Nathan McKinnon was one of them. It's just a lot of real raw emotion from these guys. A lot of like a lot of these guys have been on this team when they've had their failures, and to see them be able to overcome and crest the summit, and all of your metaphors and whatnot, just it feels really good. This is a great story, and yeah, just super happy for the Avalanche here, and what great hockey we were witness to. But coming up next, we're going to talk about the flip side of the coin. Here is the Tampa Bay Lightning, as what this means for how history views them as a hockey team in general, and maybe if they melt it down a little bit, like what we think of that in the final game too. But that'll be coming up right after this. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcast news, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Andrew. So, like I said, heading into this segment, we've gone from the Colorado Avalanche, who won the Stanley Cup, to the Tampa Bay Lightning, who it's been a while since they have known defeat in a playoff capacity.
Yeah, it showed.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get there. But they had won 11 straight series heading into this, and lost. They had gotten into three straight Stanley Cup finals, won the previous 2, and lost this one. I guess we'll just head right into their behavior on the ice, because that's clearly what you want to talk about. But we will, I guess, talk about what this means for their overall dynasty. I know a lot of people on hockey Twitter were not a big fan of the Lightning losing their cool with who was it, Pat Maroon, and his chopping of, I believe, Josh Manson in the leg, and Victor Hedman taking that terrible boarding penalty that should have been a lot worse, all basically right after the Avalanche took a 2-1 lead in the second period. I know a lot of hockey fans were not a big fan of that, but then there was me, like, completely enjoying this villain turn from the Lightning, because that's what they've been from the start, basically. It kind of started last year with, them embracing the Kucherov stuff, and, Kucherov had that shirt during the Stanley Cup final parade.
And also he needlessly went after Canadiens fans while celebrating the Stanley Cup win.
Yeah, so this has been a long time coming, and it really boiled to a head here in Game 6, and they let their frustration show. And it seems, Andrew, you have a lot of strong words for this, but let me just say, yes, those hits were dangerous, but I'm not surprised at the villain turn the Lightning took here, because that's what they were always going to end up being. We talked about it. They were the final boss, and I'm glad that the storyline here coalesced to be what it was, because that's what I was hoping it would be. But it seems you have strong words for the Lightning here, Andrew.
No, I mean, here's the thing. Any team that gets this far and has this much success, you got to do some dodgy stuff.
Mm.
Every team has dirty players, and the more games you play, the higher stakes they are, the more you get to see those dirty players be dirty. And for whatever reason, I feel like Nikita Kucherov has kind of slid through the last 8 or 9 years or whatever of his career without getting the label of being a dirty player. But he's a dirty player. He's cheap. He's a poor sport. He's a poor winner. And like at the end of the game last night, he broke his stick out of frustration, then went to the bench, and the equipment manager wasn't ready with his new stick. So he took off his glove and whipped it at the equipment manager. And listen, I get it that you got 10 seconds left in a game where you could lose the Stanley Cup. You're upset that somebody hasn't done their job properly, but you don't throw your glove at a team employee. Like, emotions run high, sure, but give me a break, Nikita. And I find that, combined with his comments last year where he just needlessly trashed fans, which doesn't make any sense. They weren't actually going after him or anything. So that kind of stuff going beyond the actual game, I don't think Nikita Kucherov is the most likable guy. Outside of that, I mean, Steven Stamkos, I thought his post-game comments were incredible, showed what kind of a leader he is. But of course, they're the villain. Anybody who wins too much becomes a villain. It's that line from The Dark Knight, right? Either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself
become the villain. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true of all sports. It's like when everyone got sick of Golden State, right? And now they're back. And it was great this year. But when they had that like unbeatable run, everyone was sick of them, right? Everyone was happy that LeBron James won that NBA championship in the final second with that amazing block and then running down and getting the basket the other way. Most people, at least in Canada, I know, were happy about the Raptors beating GSW as well. So now maybe the Golden State Warriors are not the villains anymore, because they just seem like a little bit less impenetrable. They have to work harder to win it. Steph Curry is getting a little bit older now. Not that he's not spectacular, but he's not the prime of prime Steph Curry. The same thing will probably happen with the Lightning. They might take a year next year, or maybe they lose in the second round, and then they'll be back to what they're supposed to be. They have the right mix to get right back there. I think Steven Stamkos, somebody asked him if this was like the end for that core, and he was like, why would it be? He got like really upset about it. It's like they do have the hearts of champions. I will say that. I do love the Lightning just do not die, right? But man, the poor sportsmanship for a team that won twice in a row and got back into the finals, it's a little bit childish. Pat Maroon, definitely childish. I didn't see the clip, but people were saying that Ross Colton cross-checked a ref at the end of the game, which I'm assuming was an accident. But
I would assume so as well. Like, I know it's childish. It says something that they go into these Stanley Cup finals and they act like they've almost never won it before, basically.
I find it's less that they've never won it before. They act like they are the only ones who should be allowed to be there. And I found that a lot in this series, especially the last few games. Every single time they were scored on, oh, well, we need 5 minutes to dissect this goal and figure out why it's illegal. Like, what makes you so special? Calm down. I understand John Cooper is a lawyer, but we don't need to litigate the minutia of every single goal. Like, just shut up and earn it. And I think that's what bothered me the most about this Lightning team this year, is that they were good enough to earn it, but they had to squeeze everything, right? Always in the ref's ears. Yap, 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 yap. And I don't have a lot of respect for that approach. And that's why I love that the Avalanche won this game in Game 6, because after the last game where the Avalanche were completely screwed by the officials, frankly, not that they played amazing, but they were screwed over in that game. Instead of complain about it, they said, that's their thing. We're just going to go out and win the next game. And they did. I love that.
Yeah, it makes for a good story, and the Lightning deserved to win their previous Stanley Cups. I don't think that's
100%.
like they deserve to be there. It is just their it's like, at the end of a Disney movie when the villain is like, grasping for anything to keep them alive, like they're just grasping at straws to, stick around after the villain beats them. That's what or after the hero beats them. That's what this felt like here. Is like they had one last dying gasp basically of trying to, keep their championships, and it didn't work. And funny that you mentioned John Cooper, because you had all of the stuff about him litigating all of those calls, the Lightning, being able to, challenge things more seconds after, like challenge goals more seconds after than you were supposed to. But I saw a quote from him last night that like he was basically just like, the Avalanche played better, they deserved everything, like they deserved to win everything they got, and like who are we to stand in their way or something like that. Like, I don't know, it was a very like,
He's always magnanimous in defeat. Like,
yeah.
I love John Cooper. I really do. If I were to be like building a franchise and could have my pick of every coach, I would probably pick John Cooper. I think he's
Mhm.
phenomenal. I it's just the attitude of how dare we be scored upon. Somebody must have done something illegal. Like, I get it, you're great, but let's look at the accomplishments of this Lightning team over the last 4 years, because I know they were swept by Columbus in a big shocker series back in 18-19, but since that, like, over that time, they've put up 62 wins in a season. That was that 18-19 season,
Yep.
which is the most of all time, tying the Detroit Red Wings in 95-96. The fourth best points record in the history of the NHL. Then they won 2 straight Stanley Cups in the COVID era and went back to a third Stanley Cup final and took it to 6 games. Shortened summers, injuries. They won the first Stanley Cup without Steven Stamkos. They went to this one without Braden Point for most of the playoffs. This is a team that is beyond resilient, that should be, a team that we point to consistently as, like, this is excellence from the top down, from pro scouting, amateur scouting, drafting and development, uh, integrating players into your team. They built a third line at the trade deadline, and that third line was awesome in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that doesn't happen. They are an incredible team, an incredible organization, and it just kind of sucks that at the end of the day, what people are going to remember about this final for the Lightning is a lot of whining.
Sure, but I think at the end their legacy will win out.
Sure.
Maybe in the way that they went out was, if maybe if you ask them like if they would want to redo their, I guess, attitude basically in the Stanley Cup final, they would probably come back and say yes. Maybe, I don't know. Like, obviously, I can't speak for them, but like I would, because when have those moments where I act like a petulant child, because it happens, everybody does. Then I feel completely embarrassed. I'm like, why did I do that? That was so awful of me. It may be different for a ultra hyper competitive person like the Lightning are, but like, sure, it may not have ended the way they wanted it to, and they didn't put their best face forward to the world, but at the same time, we've seen them at their best. And sure, there is something to say about being gracious in defeat, but the post game comments, like, they were gracious in defeat there. Like I said, that John Cooper quote was, was as, I don't want to say classy, because it feels like an overused word in these situations.
It's the word of the of hockey, right? It's
Yeah.
all classy. I hate that.
Yeah,
word.
I know, but it was as, I guess, grateful in defeat as you can be. So sure, they let their emotions get the best of them on the ice, but at the end of the day, they were, classy about it. But what does this say for the Lightning overall, like with their dynasty? Because I think the NHL classifies a dynasty as 3 Stanley Cup wins in a row. So I know people are going to debate, whether the Lightning are a dynasty or not. They did a lot, like, I mean, you put it into really good perspective overall about what they've accomplished recently, and like there are no asterisks to this Lightning team. Sure, they didn't have a full 82 game season until this year, but they made it within 1 game of winning the Stanley Cup final again. Like, you can't take that away from them. They are just an incredible hockey team, and I think you said it right. It's like the pinnacle of excellence. We're going to look back at this era of hockey, and we are going to point to this Lightning team and what they went through from losing to Columbus in the fashion that they did in the first round after having a historic season. We're going to look at that era from then to now and possibly beyond, because like Steven Stamkos said, why would we think that they're going to be done? Like, sure, the Avalanche are probably the odds-on favorites right now to win the Stanley Cup for next year, but you can never count out the Lightning until it's over. And it seems as if this team wants to continue to be like that. They're still hungry for another Stanley Cup, and
100%.
if they win next year, that'll be 3-4, and that you don't often see in the NHL either. I mean, obviously that's assuming a lot of things happen and break their way and whatnot, but this Avalanche team is still going to be around. They still got really good pieces. They'll be able to shuffle things, and that their front office and all that stuff that was able to construct this team, all that, they're so incredibly smart. They're still there. They're still going to be able to find a way to do these things. And I'm looking forward to seeing if what you said is true about, they lose this one, maybe they come back next year and, or maybe next year they, falter a bit, but maybe the year after they come back, will people look at them as, the whiny losers that ended this Stanley Cup final, or will they look at them as the dominant team that won back-to-back Stanley Cups and nearly won a third? And we were all rooting for, at least a lot of people were rooting for, Stamkos in that first one, when he had at like one shift in that game and scored the goal. Like that I think for me is like the biggest thing about this Lightning team. Like it's not their villain turn or whatever. It's like at once upon a time they were the hero of this story
Of their own story.
Yeah. And that time obviously has to end. Like it gets lonely at the top. And I'm glad to see that the other teams are testing them and stuff like that, because
well, we can even go further back with the Lightning too, right? Like yeah, they set the record in 2018-19, but the year before that, they went to the conference final.
Yeah.
The year before that, they had a really fluke season and missed the playoffs with 42 wins in 82 games.
Wow.
Which is crazy. 57.3% winning percentage and missed the playoffs. And the year before that, conference final again. Year before that, Stanley Cup final. Like this is a team that's knocked at the door for 5 years before they finally won. So I think there's lessons in here for a lot of teams, both from the Avalanche in turning things around quickly and building on the areas that you don't know. Like look how fast Joe Sakic adjusted when he realized that there was things that he didn't know about pro scouting and analytics, and brought in an analytics department to actually do a good job for them. 5 years from worst in the league to Stanley Cup. And for the Tampa Bay Lightning, patience and perseverance, not panicking. They had many opportunities to blow things up and go a different direction. Instead, they just kept going through all that adversity and nearly won 3 straight. It's incredible.
It really is. And, you say about the lessons that can be learned, and, you look at the Lightning not blowing it up. You can say that about the Avalanche and, what they did after, like I said, losing 3 straight in the second round. And, there was a time for a bit that we didn't know if Gabriel Landeskog was going to come back. And he did. And he helps them win. And you can also, use this blueprint for somebody like the Toronto Maple Leafs, who, I mean, obviously we'll see where their future goes, but it seems as if they are committed to staying the course with this core. And it's a lot of people can learn a lot of lessons from this Lightning team. And even like I said, the Avalanche too, because, they were an incredible hockey team in this season, in this postseason. And just hats off to both teams. But, I think at the end of the day, sure, the Lightning are like, it sucks to go out the way that they did. But at the end of the day, people, I think, will look back upon this era of hockey with fondness, because nobody was doing it like the Tampa Bay Lightning were until the Colorado Avalanche did too. But we're going to end it there, and we're going to shift from the playoffs, which are now over, to looking ahead to the future in the NHL and some surprising coaching news, and, when we think some more dominoes are going to fall. And that'll be coming up right after this. From the people who invented healthy and tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You've probably tried the amazing coconut brownie chunk Built Bar, but guess what? Your friends at Built have given Coconut Brownie Chunk the Puffs treatment. That's right. Coconut Brownie Chunk Built Bar flavor you love in a deliciously chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling and listen. They are good for you. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein, all delicious. Coconut Brownie Chunk Puffs are only here for a limited time. Go to built.com now to make sure that you don't miss out. They are going fast because they taste amazing. All Built Bars are made with the same collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. The best part about Built Puffs is, of course, they taste amazing, but you can enjoy them guilt-free because they're actually good for you. They're the perfect treat, perfect when you've got a craving and you need to satisfy your sweet tooth, or if you need a quick, healthy snack, they're an excellent source of protein. Delicious coconut, rich sweet brownie, creamy marshmallow. Stop fantasizing, get to built.com and order your box of coconut brownie chunk built puffs right now. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off of your order. So use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, Andrew. So we shift from the playoffs to a future of the NHL because the offseason is here now. And, what a playoffs it was, what a season it was, finally, an 82-game season. I know that the offseason shifted a little bit this year because of the schedule shift, but we're finally getting back on track to what it was like in the before times. Oh, my God.
Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
I know. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, all of that stuff. But thank God we are getting to the point where things are returning to normal in the hockey world. But that means we've got coaching stuff to talk about. You talked about the last week with Laura, the Panthers' mystifying decision to, go with Paul Maurice instead of Andrew Brunette. I know he made mistakes in that playoffs, but that was a weird one. And they replaced him with a coach that hasn't done a whole lot. It's just
the losingest coach in NHL history.
Yeah. Okay, he's done
No
something.
offense,
He's
Paul,
he's done something. He's the losingest coach in NHL history. So, like you said, no offense, but it's a mystifying decision for a Panthers team that surely wants to compete, and whatnot. And it's just a really weird decision. But the other thing that came out over the weekend or on Friday was that Barry Trotz won't be coaching in the NHL next year, at least according to reports. I believe it's confirmed now that he told Winnipeg that, the team that was, courting him highly, basically, and, we all thought he could possibly go there. He's not going to coach in Winnipeg or anywhere next year. And, I think this lines up with reports saying that, he wanted possibly to do something in management too. So maybe he's just, biding his time, waiting to see his options. But that is definitely the biggest piece off the board because it was a big surprise for everybody when Barry Trotz got fired by the Islanders. And now the biggest head coaching piece is unavailable for teams. So I believe it is the Jets, the Red Wings, and the Bruins, I believe. Yeah, are all without coaches, and there's still some big names out there, but bit of a surprise from Barry Trotz, I think, here.
Yeah. I think there was lots of rumors surrounding Barry Trotz and what he wanted to do in his future, but it seems like he wants to step more into a management role, and not necessarily away from coaching, but on top of coaching, and transition away from coaching over a couple of years. But a little bit surprising that he's stepping away for 1 year at least, but tough decision for Winnipeg, who clearly threw it in for Barry Trotz, and that's where they wanted to go. But unfortunate for them as they missed out on a lot of other candidates who were out there.
Yeah.
But understandable, honestly, for Barry Trotz. He's been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
He hasn't really had that much time off in his career. He gets hired as soon as he's fired. So, yeah, I get it. I think that sometimes a bit of time away can change your perspective and help you become a better coach. I think it helped for John Tortorella when he was fired in Vancouver and he had some time off before I think he went to Columbus. He was definitely a better coach when he came back. So hopefully for Barry Trotz, it's going to recharge him a little bit and he'll be back in the game right away because I, for one, really enjoy Barry Trotz, even if his style in Long Island was not very pleasurable to watch. I think he's a great hockey person.
Yeah, he's a great hockey person. Obviously won a Stanley Cup within the past, what, like 5-ish years? Yeah. With Washington. So he's basically done it all really in his time as, head coach. So I think it's more than fine for him to, take that step back, rest, get new perspectives, and obviously play the waiting game. Like he's going to have people coming to him, like, regardless of whether he, takes this break. Like he's going to have suitors for a long time, and he's going to have his pick basically, because we know how good of a coach he is. Probably the best coach in the NHL in terms of just like the overall, like he gets hockey to a level not many coaches do. So he's going to certainly have his pick if he wants to come back into hockey, whether that be coaching or management. But yeah, that leaves basically the Winnipeg Jets in a big bind. And it kind of makes me a little bit grateful that like the Flyers didn't, put all their eggs in one basket. And like I get reasons why they did that were probably not necessarily related to the fact that Barry Trotz wouldn't be coaching at all next year. It was probably related to the fact that he wouldn't see them as the most attractive option. But still, like, you can't put your eggs all in one basket like that. So let's hope that the Jets have, other options. Somebody like Jim Montgomery is still available, I believe. I'm trying to think of any other head coaches. So we'll see. Like, maybe Andrew Brunette, finds his way to Winnipeg. Like,
That'd be funny.
It would be funny. But he's at least an option there. I mean, but you've got, the Bruins still looking for a coach. They're in a bit of a transitionary period themselves. So they're probably, I would guess, maybe they go off the board a little bit. And that
Yeah,
feels
they
like
have their own list, right? Jim Montgomery is the guy who keeps on getting
Mhm.
mentioned there. Chicago kind of went off the board and bringing in Luke Richardson from the
Oh yeah.
Canadians, who, Luke Richardson as an assistant coach hasn't done a great job in Montreal. He ran the PK and ran the defense, and frankly, not great at either over his tenure there or his tenure before that. But as a head coach, seems a little bit more interesting. I know that he took over behind the bench in Montreal when Ducharme got COVID last year in the
Mm.
playoffs, and the team played better under him. So that was kind of interesting to see. It seemed like they were willing to run through a wall for Luke Richardson. So if he can be the head coach motivator and have two assistants that run the X's and O's, then maybe it's a good fit for Chicago. But overall, the coaching news seems to be what we're going to be watching throughout the rest of this summer until free agency.
Yeah, because I mean, the draft isn't until next week. So there's a bit of time. This is when it feels like the dominoes are going to start to fall a bit, because you're going to want to have a head coach by the time the draft rolls around, or it's going to be weird. So it. I'm curious just to see which one goes first. Like which team goes first of those that are left still looking. But this, I think it'll probably be a couple of days, but I would assume by the end of the week we're going to hear something about, the next head coach. Um, because it only makes sense, and we've got a little bit of time until the draft because of the way the schedule worked out. But I'll be very curious to see who is that first domino that falls, because like, we all thought it was going to be Barry Trotz, which is the funny thing. Like when the names started piling up on the list of head coaches available, and the teams, and the more teams that got added to looking for that had a vacancy and looking for a coach, we all thought that it was going to be a logjam until Barry Trotz got hired. And it was for a bit, but then as interviews went on and stuff, it seemed as if other teams weren't contented to wait. And you had Bruce Cassidy going, I believe that was the first major move, going first to Vegas, and then other teams followed, like the Flyers and Pete DeBoer, stuff like that. So it's just at least a really interesting time for other teams in the NHL right now, because we've got a little bit of time before the draft, but surely teams are going to get their front offices in place and get their future decided for what they want for their teams, because the draft is a huge time for teams with making picks for their future, and also possibly trading players away for draft picks and whatnot. So it's certainly going to be an interesting time. Like this off season, certainly going to be an interesting one, especially because it's also another shortened one by a couple of weeks, sure, but it's still going to be a little bit of a shortened off season.
Another compressed season as well, probably a little bit. So
just
hopefully
a little bit
by next year, 2023, 2024, that's when we'll get back to normal.
I would assume that after like this is the last year of like free agency not being on July 1st and whatnot. I think the NHL, as long as there's no major COVID breaks again, but it seems like, things are getting more under control in that regard. But yeah, it seems as if next year will probably be, we'll get, the Stanley Cup final in early June. We'll get the draft at the end of June. We'll get start of free agency on July 1st. At least I hope so, because all of this has messed with the vacation I go on. I go on the same vacation every year. It's the first week, the first day of it is on Father's Day weekend. And the Stanley Cup final used to never be there, and now it is. So I'm hoping it gets pushed back to where it normally is. And, I get my nice week before the draft, because then the draft would be the Friday, Saturday of my last Friday, Saturday of vacation. I had it all planned out, and then COVID ruined everything, as it does. But yeah, definitely be on the lookout for, head coaching movement by the end of this week, I'm sure. Because that'll be something to keep an eye on, as will eventual free agency, because there's going to be a lot of big names out there. It's probably going to be a busy summer. And at least I hope so, because it'll, keep me entertained and whatnot. But we're going to move on from the head coaching carousel, as it were, and talk about pop culture segments. And we've a conversation long overdue about the season finale of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that will be coming up right after this. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. RockAuto.com is a family business, serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. The RockAuto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brands, specifications, and prices you prefer. Best of all, prices at RockAuto.com are always reliably low, and the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Why spend up to twice as much for the same parts? Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, Andrew, so pop culture segment. I was pleasantly surprised you didn't talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi last week with Laura, because I would have had to skip through that segment because I hadn't watched it.
I wanted to wait for you.
Thank you. Because I didn't watch it while I was on vacation, because I was busy. I also didn't want to spoil my cousin and his wife, who also watched the show but weren't going to be able to watch it until once they got home from vacation. So yeah, I will let you start first, because you've had a bit more time to stew on the episode than I have. So I'll let you go first. What did you think of the episode and the season finale overall?
This is, I think, my new favorite Star Wars anything. It is pretty much everything that I wanted it to be. I have literally one gripe from the final episode, and that's it. Everything else was fantastic. Ewan McGregor acted the crap out of this series. Just his facial expressions alone, every time he was met with Vader, were just something else. And I love that we got to see more Hayden Christensen. I love the slice through the helmet, which echoed the exact same thing Ahsoka did to him in Rebels.
I saw screenshots of that.
Yeah, it was so good. And the lighting during that scene where the blue lightsaber hits him whenever he's basically, when Anakin is kind of coming through, and then when he shuts him off and it's just Vader, the red comes back. And at the moment when Obi-Wan decides that, okay, my friend is truly gone, there's a little flicker of blue that goes across Vader's eye. And I just, man, it was beautiful. I think hats off to Deborah Chow for crafting such a phenomenal series. It's crazy to think that the complaints about this series were so insane, and all people had to do to get what they wanted was to wait. And we talked about media literacy a lot, Mary, over the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just want to see the lightsaber battles and the big moments. They want to see Thor dropping into Wakanda from the Bifrost, and they don't understand that the reason those moments matter is the story that leads to them.
Yes.
And this gave us that. It gave us a complete arc from, filling out Leia's character and giving her a connection with Obi-Wan, which felt so real and of that universe. And man, the actress who played Leia, phenomenal.
Yeah.
To the very end with Luke and Obi-Wan goes in there with the hello there.
Oh, yes.
You knew they were going to do it. You knew they were going to do
glad.
it. They couldn't resist. And then
Yes.
Qui-Gon at the end as well. Like, man, just perfect.
Yes, everything you wanted. And also, again, shout outs to Obi-Wan for like the series for not killing Reva. I was really I really thought she was marked for death at the very beginning.
She's gonna
of the
have
show.
her own series for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really pleased with the way they went for her, because it would suck if they would have had to kill her at the end. It's more satisfying this way, that she can go off and possibly atone for the things she did. But she had trauma in her life, and like I said, the actress did an incredible job conveying all of that. Like, the performances were great. The hello there from Ewan McGregor at the end, I was like, I should have seen this coming. That was great. The battle between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, when the part of the helmet comes off and you can hear the voices, like the different, the way that they meshed, Hayden Christensen and the actor's name I cannot remember.
James Earl Jones.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was actually done through it wasn't, I don't believe James Earl Jones actually read the lines. They used the same AI program that they used for Luke, the respeecher.
Oh yeah.
But I think James Earl Jones has a lot more lines, I would say, in his own voice or in the Darth Vader voice that they could draw on. And so it came out a little bit cleaner than the Luke audio did, or maybe the technology is a little bit better now than it was a year ago. But really, really well done.
Yeah, I thought that scene was just like, it was haunting in a way. Like, just between the visuals of the lightsaber colors and whatnot, and obviously their acting, but just like the voices and hearing it in that way was just really haunting, and just showed everything that these characters have gone through, and really drives that home in a way that really hasn't been before. Like, it really solidified that, like, obviously that it's Hayden Christensen / Anakin Skywalker, but like he's under a mask and has a different voice. But this was really like the moment where I was like, wow, like it's just it all came together basically, and just overall it was great.
The pain and torment that Anakin is dealing with, I think, comes through here better than it did in the prequels. And one thing that's great about what's going on with Star Wars right now through Disney Plus and what Dave Filoni did in Rebels and Clone Wars is they're able to fill in parts of Star Wars that have been speculated on or like written about in books, with acting and actual set pieces, to expand on what is a good overall story from the prequels, but which was butchered by awful direction by George Lucas and too much focus on the wrong things. Like, as much as it is not going to happen, I feel like with modern storytelling and George Lucas at an arm's length, if they were to take his story, because I feel like he's a good world builder, he's just not a storyteller. If they could take that and redo the prequels, I feel like they would be the best movies of the three trilogies, because that tragedy of Darth Vader is truly like the best story overall in Star Wars. But they're not good. I know people want to go back, and because there's memes and everything, they go back and pretend that it's good. It's not good. Even Revenge of the Sith, which people think is great, it's not. It's bad. It's very bad. All those movies are terrible. But they've they're able to save them through redoing things and
Yes.
this added storytelling that gives us depth. Because one of the things that I watched, like watching WandaVision and Doctor Strange, which we talked about before, watching Wanda's arc through one TV series, short miniseries, and a movie, which is like the only time she really got a lot of screen time. They did her turning bad way better than Anakin was ever done, which is supposed to be like the pop culture story of our lifetimes, right? Is Star Wars. It's the one that stands above everything else. That tells you how bad they did with the prequels, that they were able to be outdone so easily. So I'm glad that this exists because it does that story justice.
Yes. Yeah, it that really hits it on the head for me. It does the story justice, and that, you know, the prequels never did, and, you know, partially ruined the Star Wars brand for a time. And obviously there's like a whole bigger discussion about the overall Star Wars brand, but whatever. It also got a chuckle out of me when I saw Palpatine again, because
Great
I always
cameo.
think of the line that's like, somehow Palpatine returned. I know that's, you know, it makes sense that he's there, but it makes me chuckle every time I see him now.
100%.
What was the thing that you had a gripe about, though?
The one thing that I had a gripe about was, now I'm trying to, it was, Obi-Wan's decision to leave Vader alive, right? You know, it has to happen.
Yeah.
But I feel like for him to make that decision in that moment and for it to make sense, they needed to give some sort of explanation. So I feel like in your head canon, you can figure it out. And I think it's that, you know, like he sees Qui-Gon at the end, right?
Yeah.
And Qui-Gon says, I was there the whole time, you just weren't able to see, or you weren't willing to see. And my headcanon of why he wasn't able to see is because the whole time he was thinking, I must destroy Vader. And then it's when he realizes that he doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to become what Vader is to, like, finish his story, basically. That's why he's now able to see Qui-Gon. He's moved past that need for solving his mistakes and dwelling in the past. But just in terms of like the assault on the people of the universe that Darth Vader commits, it's hard to square that circle. So to me, I think story-wise, I would have had Kenobi see Qui-Gon when he was still on the ship with the people, when he was isolated and kind of like praying by himself, and for Qui-Gon to say, like, listen, you don't have to kill him. He is still the chosen one. You don't have to, like, win, right? Face him, sure, but you do not have to destroy him. That is not what your existence is here for. Take care of Luke, take care of Leia. And that, like, maybe it's too spelled out that way, but I feel like it would have made more sense in the moment to have that before. Or like, as he's walking away, you show it in flashback that he saw Qui-Gon and said that, right? So just walking away from Vader and letting him sit there, like, you know, he's not going to die. Right.
Yeah.
So that was my one gripe.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, you know, where the characters have to end up in order for the whole thing to make sense. So they have to, like, fit their, like, motivations and all that stuff
And it's
into
small.
like, no, I get it. It's tough sometimes to just like make it work like evenly when you're trying to go backwards in a series like this. But yeah, great stuff. Absolutely enjoyed the series a ton. At least I can speak for me. It was everything I wanted it to be, and it seems like you got everything you wanted to, Andrew, out of all of this. So yeah, I think we overall are on the positive end of the spectrum of this. So good stuff, Star Wars. Can't wait to see more. Excited to see. I know that there's been talk of, you know, them wanting to do another season. I think that they did a good job, like, you know.
I think both the stars said that they wanted to do another season, but the showrunner was like, that's the end of the story.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, it wraps up really neatly.
Yeah. I hope they don't. Like, I would love to see more Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, but it can't, like, it doesn't fit.
If it's only just them, because like the stuff with like Luke and Leia, that's all like good, done and dusted. I think that's fine. If they wanted to bring them back for, I don't know, 3 episodes of just like I don't know, them just being angsty at each other,
No,
I'm
like,
not gonna get too mad.
if they're gonna do anything, do like some live action untold Clone Wars stories and use CG to de-age them like they did in their battle. I would pay to see that.
Yeah,
That's
that'd be
cool
fine.
with me.
Yeah, that's fine. Just we want more of them together, I think is the
Yeah.
thing here, because the prequels really just disappointed in a lot of ways, and these two actors deserve better, basically. And I think this was a really good first step, and I hope that they're able to do more with them in some other way. But that is all we have for you today on the Crosscheck NHL show. It's part of the Lockdown Podcast Network. Make sure to follow us on your podcast platform of choice, from Apple to Odyssey to Spotify and YouTube, and rate and review us while you're at it. You can follow the pod at Crosscheck NHL on Twitter, me at Mary C. Clark on Twitter, and Andrew at Andrew Berkshire on Twitter. Thanks for making the Crosscheck NHL show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. We'll be back on Friday with some more puck talk and our final episode. See you then.